And this is the end of this keyhole garden bed. I'll put my feet in the keyhole so you can notice it. Right here is the keyhole. And you would kneel down in here, and by kneeling down you'd be able to reach the entire bed with hardly even any bending. So right now I've got it planted in radish. I planted it about a week ago, and this is designed, the radishes are meant to bring sulfur up from deep. So most of the radishes are actually going to be mulched back in the soil. The largest ones I'll harvest and eat. Then you can see the path between the series of keyholes. On the far end here I've got tomatoes, peppers, parsnips, and beets all planted together. And then in the center it's parsnips and onions. And then at the end it's rutabagas, beets, and beans. Then on the extreme corner here, you can see them hanging over the top there. That's dill. Huge patch of dill. It's gone to seed. I'm going to be bringing a bunch of seed up north and planting it. Hopefully it grows good wild. And then we have onions and beets before that. So this is really working out pretty nice right here. This is our path leading back to the bluestone and the brick keyhole garden beds. And I've got a series of rock walkways here. And it's been mulched with grass, but if you look carefully in that grass, we have ground cover raspberries growing. They only grow about 6 inches, and they'll give you a crop. And we're hoping that the raspberries totally cover the entire area around the rocks. So it becomes a ground cover and a walkway. So here we have Nanking cherry that I planted from seed. And there's grapes and blackberries. I've got 5 grapevines growing along the fence and a dozen blackberry plants. And I got these blackberries staked so they grow straight and tall. And at some point they're going to outgrow those bamboo stakes, and I'll have to put up some type of a trellis system for them. I'll work it out when we get that far. Here we have our herb spiral. I'm going to have to kind of move these rosemary and mint plants out of the way for you to see the rocks. This is the top rocks right here. Our lower rocks are down here, way down in here. So it just spirals up. As it spirals up, it gets higher off the ground. It's drier soil in the center, and that's where we plant our herbs that like dry soil. This is the industrialized looking brick keyhole garden bed, and on it we have planted broccoli, carrots, and onions, and they're growing marvelously. Over here, hidden amongst the many strawberry plants, is our bluestone keyhole garden bed. See the bluestones? And the keyhole's even been overgrown with strawberries. And that's okay. Right here's our keyhole, right here. Next spring when they come up, I'll train them so that there's not any in the keyhole. Around the bluestone keyhole garden bed we have chives planted. Chives is a companion plant for strawberries. In the background along the fence we have currants and gooseberries, bush hazelnuts, dwarf apple trees, goji berries, and currants. Or did I say that already? That's all planted very thickly together. They're going to be heavily pruned, and they are going to get along with one another. It's been discovered that plants don't compete for nutrients in the soil, rather they compete for sunlight. So if one is taking over all the rest of them, and you can notice that, and you prune them back, all the rest of them will be just fine. So this is the front garden that I designed. Let's go to the next one back. This is a giant pumpkin that I planted right in the middle of my lawn. And the deer began eating them, so I put them in a large planting container. That's pretty much kept it alive and getting chewed on. This is a white pumpkin. I put a little soy straw in front of it. This is one of those warded squash in here. The deer visited last night and they didn't even notice it. Look at that. See that? That's a warty sucker. Let's get a close-up of this thing. Look at that. Warty sucker. What we're looking at here is the area that I do composting, and it's been totally taken over by the squash. And I say the squash has another 10 days, maybe 2 weeks to go. And I'm going to be catching all these green leaves before they die, and I'm going to be composting them, along with everything else on the property that's green and about to die. It's all going to be composted and recycled back into the gardens. There's some acorn squash. That one down there. Oops, some white ones. Green squash. I don't know if you can see it in there. It's pretty nice. It's a pretty large Delectica squash here. That's hard. Getting done. It's a sweet squash. I think it's a... This one actually got ate by a woodchuck. You can see the wound there. It's healed up nice and hard as a rock now. And a bunch of dumpling squash in here. This is I think that's a cross. It's a cross. I know that's Van Roosen pumpkin, and something else has got into it because it's got ribs. It's not supposed to have ribs like that. That's interesting. There's the last of my pickling cucumbers. So this is the garage garden, and what we're looking at there are yacons. That's a potato-like root. It's supposed to be sweet. Never tried them before. First time ever planting them, and the plants are growing marvelously. Whether they have roots or not, I don't know. I'm going to wait until they die out from the frost. See what I got. And immediately in front of it, we have peppers that didn't grow that well. We're getting a little bit of a crop. Right behind it, we have radishes growing. And then the mound behind that is beans and buckwheat. And the buckwheat is, and the beans both are pretty much done. And you can probably see some beans there hanging there. See them? Those are beans. And the buckwheat seeds are hardening. And I notice we get a lot of birds come visiting, so I don't know how many of the seeds I'm going to get, but hopefully I get a handful and I'll be able to replant them next year. The center fence, we're growing Concord grapes, or Reliance grapes, seedless Reliance grapes, and along with those grapes are thornless blackberries. 5, 6, 7, 78. But I could see there's 78 berries on one plant. And right now we're pushing 25 plants on the property. Hopefully I could get 75 big blackberries like that on each plant. That's just the thornless ones. I probably got another 20 thorny blackberries growing. So I told you about the radishes. I got some right there you can get a close-up of. These are fall radishes, and some of these get to be 2-3 pounds a piece. Here we have our kiwi trellis, and the kiwis just shot up. I got one male that's just dominated. He grew 20 feet tall. Look at that. There he goes, up and up and up and up. He's way above the garage. And I've got one backup male in here that's growing okay, and 4 females. So here we have a fruit corridor. We're looking at mulberries. You can see the mulberry just peeking out past the water tank there on the right. And we have 3 blackberry plants. And then we have 2 grapevines, another blackberry and another grapevine, and 2 more mulberries. And in front of the fence on the ground here, we're looking at quite a few honeyberry plants. And then on the other side of our little path here, we have blueberries. And there's 7 different varieties of blueberries planted in that little spot. 7 plants. And of course, nestled in amongst all of this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comfrey plants. And then I've been chopping them, using them as mulch, and burying them in with the seed plantings. And they just keep right on growing like crazy. These comfrey are biodynamic mineral accumulators. And if you want a healthy garden, you have to have comfrey located around for you to mulch with. Right here is the end of our grape blackberry plantings along the fence, and then we come with 3 female kiwis and 1 male kiwi in front of the mulberry. And then down in front of the kiwis we have a number of blueberries planted. And inside the fence we're looking at an asparagus planting. And I planted peas with them this year, climbing peas, and they climbed up amongst asparagus and harvested just bucket loads of peas with that, and didn't do any harm at all at asparagus. And when I made sure, when I pulled out the peas, I left the roots in place, so now all the nitrogen is down amongst the asparagus, so asparagus can feed on it. Inside the fence we're still growing cabbages and kohlrabis. The kohlrabis are getting very big. And I seeded the entire area at radish, and basically I'm going to let most of that radish mulch into the ground, because radish brings up sulfur from deep and then distributed amongst the topsoil. Here's all my garlic drying in the shed. And I got spring onion seeds there getting ready. I'm going to plant those, and then I'm drying out potato onions. And then I'm going to sort the potato onions into large. The largest ones we're going to eat, medium ones I'm going to replant, and the smallest ones I'm actually going to replant those as well, but that will be scattered all over the place. This is the other side of our cabbage and kohlrabi planting. We got kohlrabis that are size of soccer balls. They are monsters. Look at that. That is a kohlrabi. Here it is, beginning of September, and you cut these open and they're still just as juicy and tender as can be, even at that size. Here I started working a cold frame together. I got 10 of those windows for free from a neighbor. I'm going to stick 4 of them lengthwise here, and then I'm going to stand them on end over here. I got 14 blueberry plants planted in here, opposite side of this peach tree. Got some American hazelnuts. We got plantings of tomatoes and onions there along that fence that I put up as a trellis for the tomatoes. This is where I had the garlic planted. Of course, I harvested that in August, and then I planted it with radish. These are fall radishes. There's plenty of time for these radishes to get a nice bulb. And in the next couple of days I'm going to be planting spring onions right alongside of the hoop houses here, miniature hoop houses. And I've got to have this screening over the top of them or the rabbits and the deer would eat them. Radishes, that is. The onions they won't eat, so I can plant them alongside. This is one of 3 swales that I have on the property. And this is the most artistic. It's in the shape of a smile. And the green plants are bird's foot trefoil. And then I have apple trees, cherry trees, hybrid chestnut, and peach tree growing on it. Oh, some hazelnuts in the back of it too. So here we are looking at the corner of our little polyculture. It's 35 feet long to the back fence there, the wooden fence, and it's 25 feet wide, a rectangle. And we have apple trees, cherry trees, plum trees, pear trees, hazelnut bushes, northern pecan trees. I don't know if I got anything else other than that in there. And then there are a number of perennial plants. We have rhubarbs, chives, comfrey, mints, all growing in it. And this was actually pretty much 2 apple trees and grass, not even 3 years ago. And I started to plant some more apple trees, and then I learned permaculture, which, you know, promotes polyculture, which is a mixture of species, and so I mixed her up. And it's growing marvelously. There's also mulberries in here. I should count how many trees are in here. 32, 33. There's 33 trees and there's still bushes in there, perennial plants, so there's 33 trees in a 25 by 35 foot rectangle area. And the key here is they recently discovered that the trees, if you have the right soil and the life in the soil, you know, which there's a lot of carbon and a lot of organic material, they really don't compete for nutrients in the soil. If you have the right soil, again. But they will compete for sunshine, so it's just a simple matter of pruning the ones that really take off. They want to dominate. And the idea here is to have a staggered, diverse harvest. You're not looking at a situation where you're getting as much as one tree can give you. It's a situation of giving as much as an area will give you. This is diversity. If for some reason the cherries don't bear one year, well, you have everything else here that's going to take its place. So here we have a look at the same rectangle from another angle. We also have grapevines in here, by the way. And how I originally started this was I put down a layer of cardboard and put down 5 or 6 inches of wood chips over the top. Now that's mimicking a forest floor where all the debris falls to the ground. Well, I kick-started it with these wood chips and cardboard. The cardboard obviously kept the grass from growing and also turned the grass into food for my trees. And then the clover was planted to add nitrogen into the wood chips as they decomposed. So I want to show you this apple tree here. I've got a couple of Japanese apple bags hanging from it. You can see this is, you can see this or not? Yeah, you can see that. That's the outer bag here. If I take this outer bag off, you're going to see where there's an inner bag. This outer bag actually has a black inner liner. That's to keep the sun from penetrating into the apple. And of course this is designed to keep the apple maggot fly from laying eggs in it in the apple. And then this also keeps the apple from getting red. See, that's white. That apple's white. Where these apples are supposed to be red. See this down here? I can get this to come down here. see if we can get a better look at it this way here. There, see? So you notice the red apples there. And if we come over here and get a close-up of our apple in the apple bag, you will see that the apple is white. Look at that. So this outer waxy paper layer, it's allowing some sunlight in, and it's going to now begin to turn red. It's going to take 2 weeks. And it won't be quite as red as the apples that ripened without a bag on them. But we're going to have an apple that's perfect without any rodent or insect damage. And it also allows this apple to be able to be stored longer in the wintertime. That was the first time I tried this. Looks pretty neat. This one I opened yesterday. This is a nice one. So that apple should be as red as this one. It's going to turn red now. Since I got the camera, let's go over here and look at it. We got a couple hazelnuts. There's 2 right here. These are ready to pick right now. I'm not going to do it while I'm filming though. There's a couple more. There's another one in here. These are new plants. These are American hazelnuts. So Americans are generally known as not fruiting every year. And sometimes not that large of a harvest, and then once in a while it comes out with a monster harvest. Here's my rhubarb patch. There's also some asparagus growing in it. Look at that leaf. A monster leaf. Here we have a hugelkultur. And this one is planted with blueberries and gooseberries. And there's a peach tree, a couple apple trees on the ends. This is a rectangle, is a back to Eden garden. And it's totally surrounded with hugelkultur. I just harvested a whole bunch of potatoes from this hugelkultur right here, the southern side. And the back we have watermelons and squash growing. We're going to have some watermelons. We need another 2 weeks to have most of them get ripened. I think we're going to get her. Now on the back fence, I recently planted a row of blackberries, thornless blackberries, and Concord grapes, seedless grapes. And then right here, another one next to this rock. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. There's quite a number of them in throughout here. See one right there, I flipped up a little bit because there's some potatoes growing under it. This is a nectarine tree. This one actually made it through the very hard winter last winter. So I'm looking forward to it growing quickly. There's our yellow delicious apple tree. That's a sweet 16. This is a swale that's ahead of our main crop garden. And on the swale mound we have sea berries, plum tree, blackberries, and hybrid chestnut. In the background we have cherries, hybrid chestnuts, black locust, and there's also seaberry way to the back. And then on the fence we have grapevines and Schisandra vines growing. And if we go and point the other direction, we have another swale in front of our main crop garden. I'm incubating some Russian apple trees there along the wooden fence. And we have a couple sea berries, another plum, and goji berries on the swale mound. In the corner, I call it our permaculture corner. See, I remember everything I got back there. I got a dwarf pear, there's a hazelnut, buffalo berry, sea berry, mulberry, sweet crab apple, Nanking cherry, and a hybrid chestnut. And they're all growing in a 5 by 5 foot square all together. Sticking out here we have our elderberries, and this is the first year I got to eat elderberries, and I thought they were quite tasty. I think next year we're going to have a monster harvest, and I'm just eating as much as I can fresh. I'm trying not to preserve anything. I'm just eating it all. And of course I'm making too much and I got to preserve some of it, but I'm filling my face first. Okay, here's our main crop garden. You can see I got a series of mounds here, and I actually have wooden walkways in between the mounds so I don't compact any of the soil. And these mounds I actually put to bed already for the winter. I harvested potatoes and peas out of the first 3, and exceptional crops. I say the middle mound where it had most of the shade didn't have that great of a potato harvest, but there was still a harvest. The one here that doesn't have straw on it yet is still growing some cucumbers, and it's got clover on it, and I'm going to be turning that clover into the soil and mounding it up. And then the mound after that, that one is kind of special. I heaped that up with, actually I heaped two of these mounds up with comfrey, and then I covered them with cardboard so that the comfrey would get ate by the worms, and then I put straw over the top. And when I go to plant it next year, I'm believing the cardboard is still going to be there intact, and I can plant, make little holes in the cardboard and plant after I take the straw away. The next area that's green yet, that's a bed of horseradish and garlic that I haven't harvested yet. And the horseradish I'm actually going to try to get out of this main crop garden. I'm putting it into the hugel culture, and I'm also bringing it up north and planting in my wildland. Then there's 3 mounds behind that yet that you can't see, and I got that planted to radishes. There's a wooden walkway right down the center here, and on each side of the walkway I've planted plums, cherries, apples, European hazels, Nanking cherries, blueberries, all the way down the walkway. And these are going to be heavily pruned so that they don't get any taller than, say, 6-7 feet where I can reach and actually reach them and prune them. I want to plant this to annuals as long as possible before our trees finally do take over. That's okay. This side I put in 3 sisters, and the corn didn't do well this year. It was cold when I planted it, cold and wet. Some of them didn't come up, and then I replanted. And then the slugs came on really hot and ate them up. Still, some of them got through all that, and we're going to get some corn. The squash is doing good, and the beans also got ate up bad. I could see one bean plant. I could see it on this one right here. See the flowers, and that bean plant is really late. Here we are the first week of September, and we still haven't got any beans on it. That's a runner bean. Another one there that we can see easily. There we go. That's a sweet squash. I think that's called a sweet meat. There's a banana squash. I've got one that's twice the size of that, but the chipmunks started eating on it, so I picked it. Sweet squash. There's another banana squash that was started getting eaten on. I thought it was mice, and I actually did catch a mouse, but then it ended up being chipmunks. I don't know what this is. It's pretty big. There are my beds that have radishes growing. They're just popping up. I just planted them not even a week ago. Here's my little yellow raspberry patch, and I've been trying to take care of them best I can, and this is the first fall that they're really coming on strong. big berries that are holding together. Looks like there's going to be a pretty large harvest there. Back here I'm incubating black locusts, and as soon as they lose their leaves, they're heading north. They're going to be planted on top of the hill. And then I got a line of Siberian pea shrubs, and they didn't do so well. I think there's like 19 of them in here, and they're just pathetic looking. That's a failure. And this is my Jerusalem artichokes there back in the corner. That's the lowest part of the main crop garden, and they're planted there so that they soak up all the excess nutrients that come down this way. And then I'm going to cut these stems down and compost them. Oh, here's our black walnut trees, and I've been harvesting walnuts. There's our grapes. They're just now starting to get sweet. This is one plant. The grapes are small, but I'm going to be juicing them. But that's okay. I got a couple of Nana plum trees planted in the corner in the shade, and they grew all summer. They were just little bits of things, so they grew up, looks like maybe 8-9 inches this year. That's a lot of grapes. Kind of hook, and they grab you. Let me tell you, you get embedded in these guys, and you gotta stop and actually pull them back out of both your skin and your clothes. They're nasty, but they sure do make nice berries. So I gotta line them. I think I've got 7 of this. I think this is prime Jan, and then I have 3 or 4 of these types, and I forget what they're called. They're supposed to have, these are supposed to be annual, and then the prime Jans are biennial. So they grow the stalk one year, and then they have the berries on that stalk the next. Grapes and blackberries are companion plants. They help each other, both in reducing the pests and also underground. Share nutrients. Between the fences I have all types of berry bushes planted. Aronias, Nanking cherries, currants, gooseberries. And there's some hybrid gooseberry plants in here. There's a couple of different types of currants actually. Goji berries. It's all in there. Ooh, there's a monarch. I've seen more monarchs this year than I have the last 3-4 years combined. So they're making a comeback. I think people became concerned with them and started saving some of their habitat. These are thimbleberries. Look at the leaf pattern on that. Almost looks like a maple. The perspective of this. Okay. That's a thimbleberry leaf. It's a raspberry cross. There's a watermelon that grew out from the hugelkultur through the fence. Okay, there was a clearance sale at Lowe's here a couple of weeks ago, and these plants originally were $20 or something, $18.98, and they had 75% off, and I still didn't want to pay that much, so I asked, and I said, hey, I'll pay $2.50 a piece, I'll take them all. She says, oh, I can't do that, and she hemmed and hawed about they can only have so many discounts and all that sort of thing, you know, and I let her hem and haw, and finally she came back, she says, how about $3 a piece? Well, I'm not going to quibble over 50 cents, and I said, okay. So I believe I bought 21 of them, and I planted 18 of them here really thick, and my purpose is to just get them through the winter. Right here I want the rabbits to eat them down to the ground. It did have some type of a white mold on the leaves, so I want the rabbits to eat it and process all these leaves and trunks and everything, let them shoot up new next year, and then I'll protect them with cages. And then throughout the next couple of years, I'll just transplant them out of here. Oh, inside the fence here, this is a Mayday tree. Check that out. It's supposed to have flowers like lilacs, very fragrant in the spring. And they produce an edible berry. So I want to show you this extra fencing that I had to put up. Behind this second fencing is a 2x3 inch square fencing, and the deer would actually stick their snoots in there and they would get at these new growths. Now I got an extra layer of fencing around it, and last night the deer did come through. You could see the tracks coming right through here, and they couldn't negotiate through a double fencing like that. You know, the apple trees put all this effort into growing. Looks like there's 18 inches of new growth there, and then a deer will come along and they'll eat the whole thing right down to the older wood. But not anymore. So this is our little polyculture. I want to demonstrate how we can grow a lot of plants into a 5-foot by 15-foot long rectangle. And we have hazelnuts and sea berries, and there's a hybrid hazelnut in here. There's a Arkansas black apple tree in the cage, the brown tube. The other brown tube has got plum trees and service berries. And then for the perennial plants, we have rhubarb and comfrey. And the comfrey, I've actually cut it twice now. I'll take all that straw, I'll actually grab it and I'll rip it away from there, get exposed to bare soil, and I'll cut the comfrey and lay it down on the bare soil, and I cover it back up with straw. There's also mint and chives growing in it. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this matures next couple years, and how much produce I can get out of this one little bitty spot. Prove to everybody that you can grow a lot of food in such a little spot. That's what I want to do. And then in the tubes located around back up towards the house, we have apples and cherries and plums and grapes and pears, crab apples, apricots. So some of these trees actually I planted when we first moved in here 30 some years ago. And then like that big old pear tree in the background, that was there when we moved in. Okay, that's the update for September 6th. It's Saturday morning. Time to go to the farmer's market. Thanks for watching.